Really gonna really lay it on to people.
Well, actually, just a heads up, I went live now just because that was great information you were just saying there. And
Cool.
I think what we're going to see now is the discrediting of all of the occasional true stuff Donald Trump said over the years as being like radical conspiracy theories that inspire sedition against the United States. Like when Trump, like his tough on China rhetoric, he wasn't actually tough on China, but he gave the rhetoric that he was tough on China. Like Trump's speaking out of how we're going to end the endless wars. He didn't really actually do anything to end the endless wars, but he spoke out against it at least. Like Trump floated the idea of like breaking up the big tech giants, Amazon, Google, Facebook. He didn't really do anything, but now with Biden coming into power, all that talk's going to go away, and all these organizations are going to amass more and more power.
And his
And I think,
platform, bro, his platform. Remember, build that wall. There's perhaps the biggest fraud of him supposedly coming in. The conservatards really ought to stick their heads in toilets and flush until everything goes black.
oh, I agree. This is a huge grand design, and just like a couple days ago, that was like to me the obvious like biggest false flag I've ever seen. Now there's videos of the Capitol Police showing like they're actually waving the protesters, the quote protesters, into the Capitol building. Like they opened up the gate. It was all designed, to collapse, the Trump movement. And that, after that quote attack on the Capitol, predictably 3 or 4 senators now said that, oh, I can no longer support uh, this endeavor to challenge the electoral count.
Here's what I've been telling people: when you are questioning whether something is a false flag, first of all, unless you've heard of the words false flag, you're terribly misinformed. And if there's a host that has never said those words, stop listening, stop paying attention to them. How to discern a false flag is first you ask what was accomplished. If absolutely nothing was accomplished, that's a red flag for the false flag. And then after that, ask yourself, cui bono, who benefited, to use the language of the great harlot? Who benefited? So absolutely nothing was done by the, I don't know any of the details. I didn't look at any of the news reports. I just heard some Trump tards stormed something somewhere. Perfect. What did those idiots, if they were, I think it was staged, because unless the Trump tards are really, really that stupid, then, that's embarrassing. Clearly, it's the same thing. Timothy McVeigh in Oklahoma City, you really want to strike out against tyranny and out of control government, by all means, supposedly bomb an FBI building. And boy, that'll just do wonders for freedom, won't it? Not.
Well, I'm saying this gives the Democrats so much ammo now to do like a vicious crackdown on dissent. And now they're even talking about, and again, like the Jesuits were playing both sides of this. Like you had the one senator from Missouri, Josh Hawley, Jesuit trained, I think, at Rockhurst High School. He was one of the few senators to actually challenge the vote. And even after this, quote terrorist attack, he still maintained his challenge. And then on the other side, like now, like they want to invoke the 25th Amendment to get rid of Trump immediately. Actually, a few Democrats are now talking about that all the Republican congressmen who supported the challenge have to be removed, like expelled from the Congress.
Is that Jesuit Rockhurst
What do you think about? Yeah, Rockhurst, Josh Hawley. Yeah, what do you think about that? That's essentially what the Soviets and the Nazis did. Like once they take power, they remove the opposition, so there's no longer any opposition.
Hey, how about this? Everybody was in our community, the awake community, red pill community, were worried that they would reinstall Trump as some sort of super tyrant. How about if they just turn Biden into some kind of crazy super tyrant?
Well, I think it's most likely, and that's why it all looks like that's that's how it's gonna play out. Like the Jesuits here I got this article from the Malaysian or Herald Malaysia, but the Jesuit Civica Catholica magazine like praised Biden after he quote unquote won the electoral college back on November 3rd. But they praised Biden because he's establishment. Like that's something that to praise about. according to the Jesuits. But they say Biden is a patient, poised, and thoughtful man. He belongs to the old school of Democrats. He is a seasoned politician, friend of many Republican congressmen who, in their hearts, probably wished for his victory. Guys like Lindsey Graham, for instance, he is part, as they say, of the establishment, according to, and that was written by the Jesuit Giovanni Sale, S.J. So the Jesuits they're literally praising Biden that he is establishment. And you think about like just compare Biden to Trump, like he completely aligns more so with like the World Economic Forum's Great Reset. And like even like on Biden's like government transition page, it says buildbackbetter.gov. Like it doesn't even say like
we had change. It's change, Eric. It's change. Just like Barack Obama was change, which was actually no change at all. And the libtards and commitards are going to be greatly disappointed, with the exception of some things. I'm sure in social service, what we do here in America is Rome installs when Rome has their reptilicans in office. We just sort of hop and stroll and skip towards destruction. When she gives the power back to her demon rats, we run full bore. And that's what they achieved. They achieved communist medicine, socialized medicine with the Senate under Biden. I think it was Senate under Biden. At the time, it was the House being under that harpy, that perennial harpy Pelosi, and the executive office being given to the Jesuit-trained, mentored teleprompter reader, Barack the One Obama. So that's what I'm concerned of. They're really going to push all of their hardcore far left Roman Catholic New World Order agendas under Biden now. And
I believe I believe you referred to gun control as he referred to it as being a public health epidemic. Gun control, like gun violence. Here's
that's
the
what he did. Yeah, it's
to
coming, man. It's coming. That's great. I see it on your screen. Yeah, that's a serious concern.
And you think about this lines up with like in the conference of the in the Catholic Catechism, they say that the government, like all governments, have the duty to like regulate the sale of firearms. It means like all governments have the duty to enforce gun control. And you just look around the world to all like these super devout Catholic countries like Brazil, Colombia, Venezuela, like the gun control is completely enacted in those countries, like France.
Hey, all they need
here now in Catholic Canada, now there's strict gun control.
And let's not forget how they did that in the midst of this Corona hoax, false flag. Excuse me, they had another outrageous mass shooting false flag, and Trudeau, son of Trudeau, was only happy to step up and with a wave of his tyrant hand, get rid of what was left of your firearms rights there in Canada. They'll do the same thing here. They'll boost their outrage with some ridiculous false flag in the midst of another false flag.
Well, absolutely. I think they're going to, and now that the Democrats control the Senate and the House, I think they're going to be successful with it.
Oh, do they? I don't even pay attention to that.
One of the guys that just won the Georgia runoffs, I think John Ossoff, he went to Jesuit Georgetown University. And now, like now with
I didn't even pay attention. We are fucked. So the demon rats own everything. They own the House, the Senate, and the Father Andrew White House. We are fucked. It's coming.
Well, absolutely. And look at this. And I have the article up here that the guy who Joe Biden picked to deliver the invocation at his inauguration on the 20th is no other than the Jesuit Father Leo O'Donovan, former president of Georgetown University, who's on the board of directors of Disney. And this guy, Leo O'Donovan, I'll pull up the photo if people haven't seen it. This is the same Jesuit that's seen in a photo with Harvey Weinstein, the now shamed Hollywood pedophile. There they are right here. See, Getty Images predictably has it copyrighted. This guy where my mouse is on, he's giving the invocation now at Biden's inauguration.
And of course, that's also actress Nicole Kidman, who Barnett Barnett said was personally responsible for her sex abuse and training under her father, the now dead Anthony Kidman. All devout Catholics. Kidman has her own Jesuit priest for her and her Catholic hubby.
And evidently, she's close with Biden's Jesuit priest here, Leo Donovan. Because reportedly, according to this article, like Biden and Donovan have been longtime friends. Pardon me, but here's quoting from the article. O'Donovan is a longtime friend of the Biden family, that being Jesuit Leo O'Donovan. In 2015, he presided at the funeral mass for Biden's oldest son, Beau, after he died of brain cancer at the age of 46.
After
I
they
know
killed
Zach Hubbard's done a lot of great work on this, but it's interesting that Biden's now the 46th president, and his son Beau died at the age of 46. To me, that seems like, very well could have been like a sacrifice that Biden had to make. Because, Jesuits are black magicians. Helena Blavatsky said they're the biggest black magicians in the world who practice ritual sacrifice. But you just continue here. Biden is known to be close with a number of Jesuit priests. And while he was vice president, he occasionally attended Mass at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in Georgetown. In 1992, when Biden's son Hunter was a senior at Georgetown, O'Donovan invited the then senator from Delaware to give a lecture at the Jesuit University on his faith and public life. Biden told O'Donovan at the time it was the, quote, toughest assignment he's ever had. And I have this video on my channel. Biden appeared at a virtual fundraiser for Jesuit Refugee Service, where O'Donovan now serves as director of mission. On that occasion, Biden announced that he would raise the annual admission targets of new refugees into the United States to 125,000. So predictably, Johnny, we're going to keep the Roman Catholic invasion. It's going to be accelerated now that Biden's in office.
Yeah, I'm really concerned. They are going to railroad and ramrod all kinds of hard left communist activities like they did when they had it all under Obama. I'm deeply concerned.
Well, and now they have a super majority, so there's nothing stopping them.
Wow.
And the Republicans now especially like the Republican Party is screwed because Jesuit Trump, like I think and of course Trump went to Fordham. I want to say like probably 70% of the Republican voters now are in Trump's camp. So now that the Republicans have turned on Trump, quote unquote turned on him, it's all theater. But now that they've turned on him, they're not going to be able to get any votes like going forward. So the Democrats are just going to, unless like a new party is formed, they're going to be a new fascist right party.
Wow.
I don't see how the Democrats are going to lose any power anytime soon. And you see, previously in 2008, Biden penned a foreword to the Jesuit Leo O'Donovan's book. And that book was called Blessed Are the Refugees, Beatitudes of Immigrant Children.
Oh, yeah. I just, because we don't have enough. Millions upon, there's never enough for these people. Millions upon millions. They won't be happy until it is utter chaos. Utter chaos. The open borders, that should be, it's high treason, punishable by death. The amount of harm that they have done with this agenda. It boggles the mind how any society could pretend to be a rule of law society and be so completely lawless and chaotic in this incredibly critical issue, of securing the border. And only that it proves the power of Rome. The Vatican has the most to gain from generations of wide open borders. Why? Not because they're Hispanic in America, the vast majority of illegals, because they are Catholic. That's the issue that everybody carefully avoids. They blow up the race to piss people off against each other. The real issue is, what is the majority religion of these illegals? And nobody talks about it.
Well, absolutely. Then when they're legalized, and you see in the last election, many illegals can vote, especially in the state of Mexifornia. But when these illegals are legalized and they're Roman Catholics, they vote for Catholic political candidates, which is the whole game here. That's the ultimate end goal. Because when you put Catholic politicians in power, that they give the Catholic Church more power. Because according to canon law, a Catholic politician serves the church first, his country second. which now Joe Biden in office, he serves the Vatican first, the United States second.
This has been the issue since the beginning of the Catholic religion. This has been the issue since the beginning, from friggin' 500 AD all the way to present. And when idiot Christians get the guilt complex because years ago it was illegal for Catholics to vote. Oh, what a horrible prejudiced society we used to have. They're completely oblivious, stupidly so, of this paradigm, which is Catholicism is an insurgency. Catholicism is an insurgency. The most brutal autocracy, open autocracy in existence today, communist China, owned and run by the Vatican, pays the Vatican $2 billion a year in tribute so that the elite in China can stay there, and guarantees that the millions upon millions of Catholic Chinese will not revolt and overthrow them on the bidding of Dirty War Jorge or whoever is sitting as the Pontifex Maximus there.
Oh, absolutely. And actually, this story, I saw this just researching last night. There's China, the Chinese Communist Party gave Jesuit Georgetown University $10 million in a donation, cash donation, to a shell company or through a company that's controlled by the party. And this was actually called out by Wisconsin Republican Mike Gallagher. He says, here's Jesuit Fox News. Wisconsin Republican Mike Gallagher is calling out Georgetown University over funding the college has received from a foreign company with ties to China's Communist Party. In a letter to Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, who's Roman Catholic, so I wonder how this is going to end up. On November 30th, Gallagher questioned the $10 million donation given to Georgetown from China's Chaoyuan Pokphand Group, CP Group, in January 2016, which was meant to establish, quote, the Initiative for U.S.-China Dialogue on Global Issues. And actually, this is on Georgetown's openly putting this on their website here. So you see Georgetown University, the Initiative for U.S.-China Dialogue on Global Issues. Like Jesuit Joe Biden, like he famously said about the Chinese communists, like they're not bad folks.
Yeah, the Vatican has kept tyrannies, has created and enabled tyrannies from the very beginning. If it weren't for the Vatican and her puppets, there would be no conflict around the world. It wouldn't exist. The Vatican has kept alive these massive, despicable communist tyrannies created by Rome and kept alive by Rome. They have to be on resuscitation. They have to be on machines because a communist tyranny cannot live by itself. They have to have traitors in the West constantly feeding them technology and resources, or else they would collapse.
Well, absolutely. And I think that this is why I think it's critical what we saw a couple of days ago with the obvious to me false flag to collapse the Trumpism political movement, because now all of Donald Trump's rhetoric and approach on China is going to be discredited. And now you're going to see like a U.S.-China alliance. The U.S.-China alliance is going to strengthen greatly. And this was even mentioned in the Jesuit La Pacifica Cattolica article. And the article is titled The Election of the 46th President of the United States. And this was written by the Jesuits publication in Rome. It says that the Jesuit article is critical of President Donald Trump's international policies, especially the rejection of the Paris Climate Agreement, which is communist. The World Economic Forum is using climate change as the guise to usher in the Great Reset. That's why Pope Francis has written numerous encyclicals specifically on climate change, and that the World Economic Forum invites Pope Francis to come each year. And a Catholic priest, Philip Larray, is an annual delegate to the World Economic Forum. And that Catholic priest, Philip Larray, said that Klaus Schwab is often at the Vatican. His words. He said Klaus Schwab is often at the Vatican. So again, Trump, by him pulling out of the Paris Climate Agreement and his tough on China rhetoric, that ideologically does go against the Great Reset philosophy. So I think that's why we had to see Trump, his movement be totally discredited with that false flag, quote, attack yesterday, where the police let the people into the Capitol building. And they weren't like armed. Like to call it insurrection, I think is kind of a joke.
Yeah,
Like there's
well,
almost just there's pretty much just as many police there as protesters. So it wasn't really an insurrection.
no, it was all carefully staged.
And then the Jesuits continue, and they say how Biden's actually going to be closer now to the World Health Organization. Because that was another thing that Trump did, which ideologically goes against the Great Reset by pulling the United States out of the World Health Organization. But here's what the Jesuit article says. Probably Biden in his first 100 days of presidency will hurry to get back in touch with Paris to gain the ground lost in terms of climate and global warming, with Tehran, that's Iran, to reconfirm with some important changes the nuclear deal, and with the World Health Organization in order to fight COVID-19 together globally. And that's another thing too. I think you're going to see more and more viral tyranny now with Biden taking office.
Yeah, they are going to ram it home. I mean, across the board, from gun control to Corona hoax tyranny, they are going to really just stick it to us. They're going to really stick it to us. I'm really depressed over seeing that the far left commie-tard demon rats own it all, and we can't even tap the brakes with the phony fraud reptilicans anymore.
Well, absolutely, because I really think they're going to be fractured after this, because just the majority of the voting base is more ideologically aligned to Trump than the establishment Republicans, like Lindsey Graham, for instance.
Mission accomplished for Drumpf, and let's not forget what an utter fraud that he is with his ridiculous television show and WWE background, Jesuit training. Look, I think the guy regularly has sex with his own daughter, so that's part of the qualification for high office. They
he's a total fraud, Joey. Actually, I think that what they did, the Jesuits are very sacrilegious, so they were painting Trump as like this man riding on the white horse, which is a reference to Christ and the Book of Revelations, how Trump is going to be the savior for the conservative movement. I think they kind of like built him up to be the savior, to have him betrayed by like his Judas or Mike Pence, the devout Roman Catholic Pence, evangelical Catholic. And again, this is all sacrilegious, because that's the Jesuits are like the masters of being sacrilegious. I think that's partly what this could have been. They set Trump up to be the hero of these people, just to be absolutely shamed and crushed at the end, and to ultimately discredit the whole movement, the quote conservative movement.
Yeah, discredit is exactly how I'd say that. They fell for it.
Now we see, just like Obama, I got the article up, Biden always carries a rosary on him. I know I'm very, very concerned. And we mentioned, I did a video on this. We talked about this a lot. Now there's openly 7 like Roman Catholics on the Supreme Court. The Speaker of the House is a Catholic, Nancy Pelosi. The President of the United States now is openly a Catholic, Joe Biden. I think the Senate Majority Leader Dick Durbin went to Georgetown. Or what's Dick Durbin's role? He's gonna have a big role in the Biden administration. He's the Senate Democrat whip. Yeah, he went to Georgetown Law Center, Georgetown Edmund Wallace School of Foreign Service.
How long has that turd been in the United States, in the Romerica Senate?
It says he was first elected in 1996. Yeah, so that's going on 25 years now in the Senate.
I'm telling you, man, when it comes revolution time, all of these generational criminals.
Well, speaking of criminal, Kamala Harris, the only reason she's Joe Biden's vice president is because she covered up all the pedophilia in San Francisco for the Catholic clergy there while she was the district attorney. And one of the top archbishop there in San Francisco at the time, William Lovato, was the highest ranking American clergyman within the Roman Catholic Church. He later became the head of the Congregation of the Doctrine of the Faith, or the Inquisition, after Kamala Harris suppressed this massive pedophilia scandal in San Francisco. That's the reason why she's vice president. And this very predictably, the quote second gentleman, her husband, Doug Emhoff, is now to become a professor at Jesuit Georgetown Law School to teach, quote, entertainment law.
She wouldn't have made it in to be district attorney of San Francisco had she not laid down on her back and had an adulterous affair with Mayor Willie Brown, Willie Brown being married at the time. So she was happy to sleep her way in as district attorneyette, and that just started a long career of despicable corruption that got her into the Father Andrew White House.
Oh, dude, she's as corrupt as they get. And I remember people. I have the video on my channel. She's covertly Jesuit educated herself. Well, at the University of San Francisco, that's where she took the bar.
Yeah,
I got this up on my channel. People should look into how. Here's an article from Breitbart. Kamala Harris failed to prosecute Catholic sex priest abuse cases despite victims' pleas. Here's her speech here. This is May 23rd, 2009. And she says that. I just want to get the quote where she specifically mentions the Jesuits and be of timeless values. So she says, and as the products of the University of San Francisco, as masters trained in a timeless and be timeless values of the Jesuit tradition. So she's calling the Jesuit tradition timeless. And she said, and Kamala Harris says, remember the perspective offered by UCF's magnificent view and spirit of Saint Ignatius. So you see clearly why she is now been installed as the vice president of America.
Yeah, good for you. I would call her a closet Catholic. Absolutely.
You know, and her husband's now teaching at Georgetown, like it's over the top. And you know, this makes sense too. Like Joe Biden said, America is going to align itself more with the World Health Organization, and you see here like the World Health Organization and Pope Francis are like one of the well, essentially, the Jesuits created the World Health Organization back in the 80s. But if you look at all their pressers, like the World Health Organization is consistently saying that we share Pope Francis's ideological view. I have an article of this here from the WHO's own website, and this is key because we see the Jesuits are praising Joe Biden that he's going to be aligning the United States back with the World Health Organization. But this is a quote from Dr. Tedros. Says, I am honored and humbled to have met His Holiness Pope Francis to discover that we share so many of the same concerns, said Dr. Tedros, quote, for many years in our previous occupations as well as our current position, we have both worked to improve the lives of the poor and vulnerable people. Like what doublespeak is this? I'm delighted to have Pope Francis support our effort to extend the right of life and health to all people. I particularly welcome the Pope's emphasis on the welfare of children. Would you look how sad, like, wow, how sinister is that? I particularly welcome the Pope's emphasis on the welfare of children. When your works have proven, Johnny, that the Catholic Church is institutionalized pedophilia. But I'll say, Tedros continues, I am encouraged to hear him say that he is beside us and all those working with us in the attempt to bring health to all, especially the many people, including children, who live on the periphery of society and who will suffer ill health and hunger. And they met here in Kazakhstan at the Global Conference on Primary Healthcare.
It must be a child trafficking hub. They must fly the children out of Kazakhstan. You should pull up the picture of Dirty Wars Jorge and his 80th birthday pizza party that he had surrounded by children.
Oh yeah, I'll pull that up here. I remember that. Disgusting, right? And that was right when like Pizzagate was coming out too. Yeah, 2017. Like unbelievable. And then again, Pizzagate centered around the emails of Jesuit professor John Podesta from Georgetown. Yeah, there it is there.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no child rape code there going on, not at all.
Well, actually, Johnny, what was the article I saw on a previous brief recently? You guys brought up there was that article from there was like a ring. It was covered by the Daily Mail. I think it was in Germany. Catholic nuns were pimping out boys to politicians. That came out just recently.
Yeah, and what disturbs me there is just how vicious child abused children. You would think that women who weren't particularly being driven by lust would slow down the ravenous men in the clergy who were brutalizing. No. Female clergy gleefully helped the rape torture and murder of children. Nuns are there's some in some ways they're worse than the rapist priests. They're not driven as much by lust. They're driven just by pure evil, pure hatred. I mean, they have a life of misery. They have stupidly destroyed themselves in the service of the great whore of Babylon. They're miserable, they're alone, they're unloved, and they take it out on these innocent children.
Oh, absolutely. And as well, I was going to keep going. If you're spot on. I was just going to pull up the article that I found from the New York Times, which proves what you're saying here. This was looking at Nazi Germany, and it was shown that Catholic nuns like would inject children with like poison inside concentration camps. And this one nun, the chief nurse, who was a nun, confessed that she had murdered, quote, approximately 210 children in 2 years by intramuscular injections.
Isn't that the same satanic harpy bitch that would throttle newborn babies too? Would she murder newborn babies as she held them? I think that's the same one.
Well, absolutely. And then in this article, these nuns, I guess when they were being interrogated, they were trying to cover themselves, and they said that they were Lutherans.
Yeah. Right. I remember that article. Yeah.
The New York Times kind of just uncritically parrots that.
No, not from the New York Times. Yeah, I remember that article. That satanic. It takes a special kind of satanically driven monster to murder a newborn baby and hold a newborn baby and then murder that baby. Just unbelievable levels of inhuman evil. And that's Roman Catholic clergy.
Okay, and that's just what's crazy to me too. Like with all of the information that's come out over the years of like the mass pedophilia, sex abuse scandal that's like really literally worldwide with the Catholic Church, that we're seeing them get even more power now in the political realm. Like
Yeah,
it's just
I
incredible.
Go ahead.
I'm just saying with Biden, like this year, like you see, so Biden, he always carries a rosary. So like, is Joe Biden gonna do anything about the pedophilia inside the Catholic Church? Well, no, you have to think realistically, it's gonna get worse now that you got Catholics holding political office. And this article is just interesting here because this was a Jesuit priest who is another one of Joe Biden's spiritual advisors. This Father Kevin O'Brien. He says, quote from this article from News Talk, Jesuit Kevin O'Brien says the veteran politician Biden is someone who, quote, regularly goes to church and always carries a rosary with him, just like Obama. Right? Obviously, Mr. Biden will become the only second Catholic to sit in the Oval Office following John F. Kennedy. And that's kind of like misleading because, like, again, when you have, quote, Protestant presidents like Ronald Reagan who become a member of the Knights of Malta, like he...
You've got some clown in the chat calling himself Conor McGregor, saying that I'm a racist idiot because of the poor immigrants from Africa and the Middle East. We didn't even talk about Africa and the Middle East, but the Vatican loves to take immigrants from Africa and the Middle East and jam them into Europe using the same program. Divide and conquer.
Well, absolutely. Like, here's this example. I was going to go into some of the Catholic members on the World Economic Forum, but here's this. The Jesuits are in total control of Africa, and here's this African business magnate representing African commerce on the board of directors at the World Economic Forum here, Patrice Motsepe. You can see all the organizations he's a member here. He's a member of the BRICS Bank. Look at all these different companies here. Founder of Arm Gold, that's a big South African mining concern. You see, and I found an article here, Catholic billionaire, this is the same guy here on the World Economic Forum, Patrice Motsepe. Catholic billionaire donates US $22 million to schools, churches. There you go right there. But, and I wanted, if people wanted to go into that, this whole board here is essentially totally Catholic on the World Economic Forum. Here, Mukesh Ambani, he's like the Baron of Indian commerce. He owns the Reliance Geophones up there, or the Reliance cell phone network. It also owns Reliance Oil, biggest oil company and tech company in India. This guy's so rich he could bankroll the whole Indian government for like 6 months. But this guy went to 2 Jesuit schools. There he is on the World Economic Forum. Mark Carney, right here. the former head of the Bank of Canada, now the chairman of the Bank of England. He said he received the Best Catholic in England award like 2016, and this is what goes into Biden's agenda to. So I think what the Jesuits want to do long term is to actually have communist China become like the new world power. So you're gonna see the United States lose its place in the world scale and China move up. And this is what Mark Carney here. He actually came out just last year and said that the U.S. dollar could no longer be the world reserve currency. And that's in line with what the World Economic Forum is doing. They actually publicly say that the United States has to take a back step in the new Great Reset.
Yep,
And they say that a community of countries have to come now to like, rule the world. But in reality, what this is, it's going to be China taking the number one role because China is the ultimate society that the Jesuits want because it's totally feudalistic. And here you got the current deputy prime minister of Canada on the board of directors at the World Economic Forum, Chrystia Freeland, and her dad was her grandpa was a Ukrainian Nazi. So you see, and this is why our Jesuit puppet prime minister Justin Trudeau said that COVID-19 is a great opportunity for a reset. You see earlier, our deputy prime minister is on the board of the World Economic Forum. So.
Yep, absolutely agree. That's their model. That's the way they want to go.
Most of these guys are Catholic here. You see, this guy's a Catholic, definitely. Angel Guerrilla. Guy looks like a Mexican Catholic. And it's just like the World Economic Forum, like the Bank of International Settlements, is dominated by Catholics. Klaus Schwab is a Roman Catholic, who, according to Catholic priest Philip Larrey, is often in the Vatican. Of course, Klaus Schwab is the organizer of all of this. Christine Lagarde is on here. She's another devout Catholic. She's met the Pope like 3 times. She's the current president of the European Central Bank.
Yeah, it really is just amazing how we apply our formula for looking up the Jesuit on all these key power players, and yet nobody else out there covers that. It doesn't amaze me. I understand it fully. They're all controlled opposition.
And you got the Princess of Jordan on here. And this is interesting because I found the Jordanian royal family is Catholic. So her husband, so this Rania on the World Economic Forum, her husband Hussein, the Crown Prince of Jordan, went to Georgetown University, Jesuit, degree in international history. And of course, the current king of Jordan, Abdullah II, also went to Jesuit Georgetown. So I just think we're going to see like with the Biden administration, we're going to see the total like the World Economic Forum is now going to be dictating like the U.S. economic policy. Like I think it's going to be full lock, stock, and barrel. And that's why he's literally naming his government transition website buildbackbetter.gov. You see, Build Back Better is the same term that's used by Catholic Boris Johnson as well in England. It's used by a few other like Jesuit Trudeau here in Canada has also used that phrase "Build Back Better" in line with the World Economic Forum Great Reset.
Yeah, this is going to be their big push for one world order, and it's going to go under the Vatican. And no one is talking about where it's going to end up. They'll talk about the deep state and all other bullshit, but these are the facts, the names, places, and dates that show how Rome is ordered. This reset is total slavery, is what it is code for.
Oh, absolutely. And this is actually, and there's an encyclical here that I want to pull up. Actually, just before I do that, just I wanted to highlight, I found this article, a Catholic NGO from Italy called Doctors with Africa. More shout out the Catholic Church is in control of the African continent. Doctors with Africa is an NGO started by the Italian Catholic Diocese of Padua. Doctors with Africa publicly commended the new WHO Director General Tedros Adhanom, who went to Catholic Asana University in Italy and who is a member of an Ethiopian Marxist terrorist organization. But this Catholic NGO commends him as the new WHO Director General. So literally all roads literally do lead to the Vatican. It's kind of overwhelming at this point. And they're putting it right in the open, especially as we covered that they're literally having a Jesuit priest do the inauguration that Joe Biden's swearing in on the 20th. And then just a reminder, that article I was reading about Jesuit Civica Catholica sponsoring Jesuit Joe Biden. The Civica Catholica is overseen by the Vatican Secretary of State. Just right now, that is Pietro Parolin. And this guy's just if you remember this story, John, it's interesting because this is the guy who went to the Bilderberg conference, I think back in 2017. And they kind of made that a big psyop because like, oh, this is like the first time a Vatican cardinal has gone to the Bilderberg, when literally a Jesuit priest created the Bilderberg group, Joseph Rettinger back in the 50s, 1954. And a Knight of Malta, Prince Bernhard from the Netherlands, was the other co-founder. And interesting, it's interesting that this guy visited Vladimir Putin's private residence in Sochi not too long ago.
Anybody that says Bilderberger and doesn't say Jesuit Joseph Rettinger is a fraud. Anybody that says Trilateral Commission and doesn't say Jesuits and devout Roman Catholics Zbigniew Brzezinski is a fraud. Anybody that says Illuminati and doesn't say Jesuit Johann Adam Weishaupt is a fraud. All this critical information that just doesn't go addressed in so-called alternative media.
Well, absolutely, and they really have total control. And you see Biden's always saying that God bless our troops. The current U.S. Secretary of the Army, Ryan McCarthy, I think went to Loyola Prep School or Loyola College in Chicago. Pull this up here. Secretary of the Army McCarthy. I saw that Biden, his pick for Secretary of his pick for the CIA is going to be Avril Haines. Jesuit, Georgetown educated. Of course, it's perfect for Biden because you get the virtue signal that, oh, now we have a woman in charge of the CIA. So, aren't we like liberal social justice warriors, like fighting for the advancement of women in society? That's what they're doing. That's why Biden's put a lot of women in his cabinet.
Yeah, I think it'll be
win-win for the Jesuits. Yeah, they're saying the current Army Secretary went to Loyola Academy. They literally have total control right now. It's
complete control. These females that he's putting in, they're going to show the same level of compassion that the nuns showed the children in Germany.
I think you're going to see. Well, I think to start like the Biden, I think you're going to see like censorship off the top, and I think what we saw with Hunter Biden, and again, Hunter Biden spent time with the Jesuit volunteer corps down in Jamaica and went to Georgetown. But remember that story where the New York Post exposed the emails on Hunter Biden's laptop that showed that he was receiving funds from communist China, and his shady dealings on the Ukrainian natural gas company's Burisma's board when he had no experience in the field. But Twitter and Facebook came out and said that you're not allowed to report that. And like they deleted tweets, they removed accounts for people who were sharing that. And this recently, I'm sure you're aware of that policy where they YouTube or Jesuit came out and said that anyone who says that there's fraud in this latest election is going to have their video removed. So to me, what that is, that's just the modern Inquisition. That's all that is. The congregate or the index of forbidden books, like that. That's just, we're seeing like the modern incarnation of that.
The amount of I mean, it's like communist China. The amount of censorship of free information is absolutely astounding in the United States of America. Whether it's the dirty dealings in government or particularly the Corona hoax and all that's going on there, absolutely shocking what they are now. But really, it's all about fear. They are desperately afraid of the truth getting out.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And like we saw, Assembly Bill New York introduced the Jesuit Kumo A416. Like that. Now they're introducing bills that propose like indefinite detention if the state just thinks you're sick. You don't even need to have a positive fake PCR test anymore. And again, there's the World Economic Forum we brought up on your last Cirucci team brief. I think I'll show people the program here, but it's the Common Pass program through the Jesuit World Economic Forum. So they want everyone to have vaccine passports, quote unquote, or COVID passports. They literally say here on their website that they're only accepting PCR tests, which is the most manipulated test, because they just turn up the amplification cycles on the PCR test, detect uh, viral, they detect inanimate viral matter in your system that's completely non-infectious when they have the amplification cycle for the test on like 40, which is what they've been doing. uh, it's just incredible that they're getting away with this for the most part too.
Yeah, it's too bad that the guy that designed the test was very critical of how it had been misused. Carrie Mullis. It's too bad that he died just late last year. He would have, I'm sure he would have had some very not nice things to say about Anthony Fauci and his background in the AIDS fraud, and now the Jesuit trained little Roman Catholic Italian troll leading the charge against the Corona hoax. Man, I really really laments the timing of the loss of poor Carrie Mullis.
I'll look into his death more, but yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they, killed him. Because he despite I know he was a vocal critic of the Jesuits' AIDS Inquisition as well, which definitely infuriated the hierarchy.
A complete and total psyop that was led by that troll piece of shit Fauci and all of his cabal. Cancer, viruses, Corona hoax. The amount of money making, scheming, big pharma harm that has been done. And these are all the same people showing up again and again and again. They're all Romans. This
Oh,
psyop.
absolutely. All of them are Romans. Actually, I had this up here. Just people should look up this WikiLeaks article here. This is when Biden or Jesuit Joe was vice president. That you see Codell Pelosi's meeting with Shanghai Catholic Bishop Jin, and this is a Jesuit Archbishop, um, Aloysius Jin S.J., who's Bishop of Shanghai. You see this article that like the U.S. government is literally praising like they're saying that the amount of religious freedom in China is exemplary, which is incredible. It gets told it's essentially like the Inquisition. You get caught like reading a Bible in China, you go into a camp, and they're saying that this is a great society that expresses religious freedom. And we know the Jesuit bishop on the Pontifical Academy of Social Sciences, Marcelo Sarando, came out a couple of years ago and said that China has the most Catholic social society, like the most ideal Catholic social society. I
Yeah,
recommend people look at it because this is a really interesting document because this shows like how close the quote unquote U.S. deep state, which is the Roman Catholic Church, it shows how close the U.S. and China are ideologically. It shows how the Catholic Church is being used as like a mediator to make U.S. and China uh, more similar. What that is in reality is they're exporting the Chinese model of society into the United States. That being the system of social credit, mass surveillance, total censorship. Like people, I think a lot of people don't realize in China you can't even search the internet in China. So that's ultimately what like they're going for here in the United States, in the West.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm sure the Jesuits love the Gnostic cabal, the Kabbalism, with that communist Chinese mouthpiece having his last name as Jin, because that's a Muslim demon. They must laugh at that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, just like Cardinal Spellman being Spellman, like casting spells on men.
Oh, good old Nellie Spellman.
Here, actually, just Alex found this great connection. Just the current emperor of China, Xi Jinping. You can literally go to a concentration camp for criticizing him. That's how crazy the Jesuit censorship is there. But here you see Xi Jinping went to the Jesuit-run Belvedere College in Ireland back in 2012, right 1 year before he became emperor of China. Receiving his marching orders, or that's what I think this is. Yeah, that was a great find there by Alex. And, and this, we're back to Biden aligning America with the World Economic Forum. Like Klaus Schwab, who's essentially a lay Jesuit, like Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum has said great things about communist China. It all lines up. Actually, do you see the story, Johnny, of the Chinese troops were training on Canadian soil?
Yeah, I've seen that. I don't make much of the accusation that there's going to be some kind of invasion from Canada into Romerica. They already own all the guns. They might do it locally. They might try to pick off so-called corona hoax positives with foreign troops. It's not going to be some kind of Red Dawn scenario, but I'm sure they're glad to have more muscle because there might be a couple of renegade cops or sheriffs or mounties somewhere that do draw the line on kicking in doors over family gatherings, which, by the way, apparently has happened in Canada. Somebody having I think it was a New Year's. I don't know if you've seen that. There was some kind of a New Year's party of 6 people, and the neighbors called them and said they violated Corona hoax tyranny, and so the cops came in and arrested them.
Well, I'm seeing, and half of them weren't even wearing masks, which just kind of makes this whole thing like a mockery. Because again, masks, like I could pull up CDC study after CDC study, which shows that masks don't work, but they're parroting through like the Big Brother media that you have to wear a mask, and all these cops like aren't abiding by the laws. It's just incredibly hypocritical and comical.
Well, that's because a mask will make you sick. If you wear a mask constantly, it will make you sick, and that's what they want.
Oh, absolutely. That's why they close all the gyms in society. Don't want people exercising. Um, exactly. Now in Canada, there's talk now about curfews being put in place, like 8 p.m. curfews. They don't want you like walking around, going like at night, like walk your dog at night. Now you can't do that.
Yeah, pushing,
You
pushing, pushing.
you really just have to be like Ignatius and shelter in your cave or your house, like he did when he like back like before the Jesuits were created, right? When he like was in the cave for weeks, and like that's when he had all these supposed hallucinations and visits from the Virgin Mary, and the Virgin told him to create the Jesuits. That's essentially what they're doing. They're forcing Ignatian spirituality on everyone. That's what this while they're doing like a record transfer of wealth. And this is what the Catholic priest Philip Larrey called Pope Francis Capitalism 2.0. That's where all of the economic power is in the hands of a few monopolies that dictate world commerce. And I think there is no small business in Pope Francis Capitalism 2.0.
That's absolutely correct. The even though they created Jesuits like Taparelli created the word social justice, they are suckering the millions who believe that their governments will deliver a communist paradise. And in reality, that's exactly what you said. They are destroying what was left of the real producers and consolidating the wealth to a tiny oligarchy of super rich elite.
See, which is how it was ran in the Dark Ages. And this is what essentially what the Catholic Church is doing. Um, actually, I have an encyclical here, and actually, I should probably get going here, Johnny, in 5 or 10 minutes, just because I got a buddy coming over. We're just going to do a workout here at the home gym. But I just wanted to, this is from the encyclical called The Mentor Nos, Pope Pius X. On the, I guess the English translation is on the French law of separation. But this is how the Pope says society is to operate. He says that we're all to be like a docile herd and just follow our shepherds or the Catholic priests, like uncritically, without thinking critically. But this is what the Pope says. So distinct are these categories that with the pastoral body only rests the necessity of right and authority for promoting the end of society. I'm just gonna repeat that. Like that's That's what we're seeing now. So distinct are these categories that with the pastoral body, which means the clerical priest class, only rests the necessary right and authority for promoting the end of society and directing all of its members toward that end. The one duty, this is where he talks about the role of us, the masses in society. The one duty of the multitude is to allow themselves to be led like a docile flock to follow the pastors. Like that, like that's incredible. Like did that, like when I think of that, I think of the movie Brave New World, like where you have to drink like the drink Soma every morning, which like shuts down your consciousness, so you can just be a perfect slave to the authoritarian state. That's essentially what Pope Pius X is saying here. He said the only duty of the multitude is to allow themselves to be led like a docile flock to follow the pastors.
Well, if you have time to check your inbox, we actually discussed this. We have some email traffic for you earlier on how, just like the Spanish flu, the bubonic plague was a massive psyop, and really what caused all of the deaths was tyranny, endless wars, purposefully mishandling famine. Rather than making the famine better, the policies of the elite made them worse, which is exactly what happened with the potato famine in Ireland. They were purposefully made worse to push the Irish Catholic immigrants into Canada, Australia, and America. Same thing happened in the so-called Dark Ages with the bubonic plague. The elite actually created the horrors of the bubonic plague, and that's what they're trying to bring us back to that level of feudalism. This has always been Rome's goal from the beginning, is a return to their wonderful days of really strict striations. The vast majority are completely impoverished serfs, die at a moment's notice. They're kept in place by the Praetorian class, the only ones allowed to wield weapons. And above the Praetorian class are the aristocrats, and above the aristocrats are the tiny few of the super elite. And we're almost there. And they're doing everything they can to finish off that. That's what their new world order will be. And that's, of course, the Vatican running it all.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Like there's before we sign off, there's an article like done by Leo H. Lehman that was really, really good on this topic. It was called The Catholic Church and Economics. So here it is here. Yeah, so people, I think this is on yourarchive.org too, Johnny, but this was March 1946. There's just not much literature out there showing how the Catholic Church is in control of economics. And this Leo H. Lehman article is one of the few that I've seen. But he goes into how like he quotes this one of the big Catholic Church's economists of the 20th century, Monsignor John Ryan, the same guy who wrote the New Deal for President Roosevelt, and he was at Roosevelt's swearing-in ceremony. Catholic priest John Ryan. But Leo H. Lehman shows like he quotes Ryan saying that the goal of the Catholic Church is to like bring the world back into like the Dark Ages.
Spot on. That was their goal 60 years ago, 80 years ago. It's their goal today. 500, 1,500 years ago. It's their goal today. Still true.
So this is I think this is the quote here where he quotes John Ryan from his book Catholic Principles in Politics. But this is what Leo H. Lehman says here. The early Christian prejudice against wealth in any form was thus conveniently watered down to a condemnation only of the commercial and outward manifestations of wealth. The substance of wealth, the possession of land, and the labor of serfs was given the approval of the church. It was easy to find metaphysical proof that such an economic system was in keeping with what papal encyclicals today constantly referred to as the order of nature. This is what Monsignor John Ryan says here. If anyone thinks that the Catholic Church today has abandoned its aim to bring back the world to the feudal conditions of the Middle Ages, he either has been deceived by oracle nature of pontifical pronouncements on economics, or has failed to read correctly the writings of the Catholic Church's outstanding economists in America. The late Monsignor John A. Ryan, for instance, whom some of the severest critics of the Catholic Church regard as one of the greatest champions of the Catholic liberalism, has the following to say in the official textbook. Okay, so that was Lehman. So here's the quote now from John Ryan. So Leo H. Lehman is saying here, if anyone thinks that the Catholic Church doesn't want to bring back the world of the Dark Ages, they're deceived. So here's a quote from the church's own economist. And it's interesting because this Catholic priest literally did write like the New Deal, which is just very interesting history. But this is what John Ryan says, quote, after all, the liberal economic views on Pope Leo's encyclical on labor, the bishop's program of social reconstruction, and the statement of the archbishops and bishops of the administrative board of the NCWC, National Catholic Welfare Conference, are more conservative than the views and politics to which are they opposed, for they go back in spirit and essence to the Middle Ages, end quote.
Nailed
it. There you go. There.
Nailed it. Absolutely.
Oh, right there. That's the goal of the Catholic Church. And actually, Avram Manhattan has a quote in his book, The Dollar in the Vatican, from the Catholic Secretary of Labor at the time, Tobin. You just get the. I went to Boston College. Maurice Tobin, Jesuit, Boston College, Catholic U.S. Secretary of Labor. Where did that tab go? That I had open. Oh, pardon me.
Do you have the dates for that? Secretary of Labor when?
He was Secretary of Labor in the 1950s.
And who would think that America was empowering Catholics as early as 1950? You have shown Catholics have been empowered from the beginning in American government.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I was watching people should watch this. I don't know if you've seen this, Johnny, on Bill Clinton's own YouTube channel. He has a video of Pope John Paul II meeting him at the tarmac in Denver. And Bill Clinton, and there's some interesting sound bites. He proudly announces that he was educated by Jesuit priests and nuns. But he says that Catholics have had like an instrumental role in the United States going back all the way to our founding. That was a quote from Bill Clinton. So, a very hidden history. But just I want to mention with Maurice Tobin, just because this Pope Leo's Leo XIII encyclical on labor and the bishop's program of social reconstruction, especially the latter there. Just this Catholic Secretary Maurice Tobin is quoted in Avram Manhattan's book, The Dollar in the Vatican, saying that every single item of this bishop's program of social reconstruction was implemented as U.S. policy. He literally said that. Just kind of a more irrefutable proof that the Roman Catholic Church is in full control of the United States.
Hey, I like to bring this up. We brought it up a couple streams ago. That the Chief Justice of the United States Supreme Court, as early as the 1830s, was a devout papist, Roger Taney, who, with the outrage of his Dred Scott decision, made sure that slavery would remain a divisive issue to create a civil war. That we're right back where we were 120 years ago, with papists trying to set those parameters again today.
Well, absolutely. And that's it. Is the Vatican controlled all polarities of racism. So we saw historically the Catholic Church was like enslaved Black people in America using the quote white power structure to do so. And now we've seen today they've done a complete 180 where they now all for the Black Lives Matter movement and slandering white people. It's kind of incredible. They did the exact same thing in Zimbabwe when the Jesuits installed Robert Mugabe in power after it was like a white Rhodesian government. And of course, it was Cecil Rhodes who actually, the Jesuits accompanied Cecil Rhodes and the settlers down to Zimbabwe. And that's why Cecil Rhodes gave the Jesuits 4 massive plots of land just outside the capital city in Harare. It was just amazing how they could support, one extreme of the racial polarity and just do a complete 180 and then flip and now support the other extreme of the racial polarity. So like you said, they're always trying to froth up racial division.
They played this game. They invented this game, Eric. They have a twisted, evil elite living high on the hog, causing just generations of crime and tyranny and slavery and impoverishment. And then they go out and they put their Jesuit muckrakers in the middle of the citizenry, and they encourage their citizenry to rise up And that way they can either have the revolution commit suicide, like the Bay of Pigs, which was completely organized, that was not in any way, shape, or form a debacle. The Bay of Pigs was carefully, specifically planned to have Cuban patriots commit suicide on the beaches. From the beginning, it was planned like that. Or they could actually have a revolution be completed. They could oust the old papal puppets and then install new papal puppets to make it even worse. So that has been the challenge. This is the challenge that we face even now, is as we try to throw off the chains of tyranny, we have to be aware of the controlled opposition. They already are in place. They're going to do everything they can to subvert our efforts and to have our rebellions go in the most unhealthy directions, which brings us full circle to what we were talking about, and false flags and supposed Trump tards crashing through gates, getting nothing accomplished. If you really want to know what's going on, whether something's a false flag or not, ask yourself, what was accomplished? Did they do any harm whatsoever to the tyrannical machine? No. If all they did was harm themselves, duh, it was a setup.
Oh, total set. They completely walked into the trap that was laid out for them. Totally so. And that's why, again, like, people should see the videos of the cops. Literally, like, now videos have come out where they're literally like waving in the quote unquote protesters into the Capitol building. It was totally planned to have the collapse of the MAGA, quote, MAGA revolution. And like the few like nationalist principles that Donald Trump like talked about are now going to be totally ridiculed and shamed. We're going to see a new globalist economy built in line with the World Economic Forum, going for the Great Reset, or the Jesuit Fourth Industrial Revolution, using the pandemic as the pretense to do it all, the pandemic and climate change. And that's where I think it makes way more sense, because Joe Biden is like way more for climate change than Trump. So yeah, it just makes more sense that the Jesuits would want Biden in there ideologically. And actually, I have the video on my channel where Jesuit Thomas Rees, S.J., says that the Vatican is farther left than the Democrats. So there you go. Like like the current chairman of the DNC, Tom Perez, went to Jesuit Canisius College, and I have the article on my YouTube or on my blog here. But the Jesuits proudly announced to their own American magazine that the current head of the DNC has deep Jesuit connections.
Yeah, so, I hope we get conservative Catholics behind us. I mean, they're not necessarily a group of people that I would trust, because they want the preeminence of their religion, but they have to wake up. They are in no way represented. I repeatedly tell them they are in no way represented. Biden, devout pro-abortion, all of these, Biden, Pelosi, all of the big name Catholics in office are far left. It's a joke. It's a joke that the Vatican can continue to put up this facade of being anti-abortion in no way, shape, or form. And even to the subject of homosexuality, the Vatican puts on this front of being against homosexuality. Meanwhile, the vast majority of their clergy, when the male priests rape children, they're usually little boys that they like to rape. So conservative Catholics need to wake up. And that citation you gave is absolutely spot on. The Vatican is to the left, far to the left of the Demon Rat Party, and the Demon Rat Party is out of control in their leftist ideology.
Absolutely. This is why you see here, I got the article up. There's absolutely zero resistance when Jesuit Cuomo signed like one of the most aggressive abortion bills to ever be passed in the state of New York. You can abort the baby now the day before the pregnancy. There's zero resistance from the Catholic Church. And they even turned the World Trade Center pink.
Is that Nipples Cuomo, governor of New York, son of a communist Cuomo, governor of New York, brother of a CIA NN anchor that supposedly got the corona hoax, Kumo?
Same guy. I believe he was on Epstein's list too.
Yes, he was. He and his ex Kennedy wife, Carrie Kennedy, both on Epstein's list.
You're a good point though. The conservative Catholics should realize that the church is full on Marxist communist, and they got absolutely no representation.
Yep, they have absolutely no.
I would encourage them to come over to our side. We can work out the Catholicism afterwards. Sure, because once you start looking into the subject, you realize that the Roman Catholic Church is a total quote false church that has been using murder and violence and coercion throughout their entire history to amass more power for themselves. The Pope is not like a god, as he claims he is. He's a regular human being, like the rest of us. So, I'd say, I think when you put the information to people, I think common sense and logic will prevail. So definitely, I welcome the conservative Catholics to come over. I'm not going to shame you for being a Catholic, but I think just after doing more research, you'll come to the realization that what as Jesus said, come out of her, my children, referring to the whore of Babylon.
Spot on. That's exactly accurate. That's more accurate than 98% of Christians even know. And my friend Eric is not a practicing Christian. When Jesus Christ says, come out of her, my children, he is talking to Catholics. Spot on, Eric. The Vatican, Rome, is the harlot of seven heads, the seven hills. The seven heads are seven hills, just like it says in Revelation 17. She is the great harlot, drunk on the blood of the saints. No institution has tortured and murdered more Christians than the city-state of Rome, either military or religious Rome. Together, military and religious Rome has killed more Christians than any other entity in all of history. Wake up. And Catholics, conservative Catholics, if you call yourself a Christian, you really have no part in Catholicism today. If you call yourself a Christian, you look at what the Vatican is today, from the communism of the Jesuits all the way through to the child abuse, the abortion, all of that. You really need to wake up.
No, great message there, Johnny. And I do got to get going.
Yeah, we'll go again. Next,
I'll wrap it up.
Go again. I'll jump in.
I'd love to do this again. I think we put out some great information there today. I would just remind Protestants of the word Protestant. That the first half of that word Protestant is being protest, meaning like you're protesting against the Roman Catholic Church. That's like the real quote unquote divine mission, if you will, of the Protestant movement. It was the Reformation. It was to end the false Christian religion of Rome and bring in more of a true Christianity. So that's what Protestants should realize, that their mandate is, if you will, to protest.
You bet. The protest is not over. It has been rewritten and erased, and we are rewriting it. It has been erased. The vast majority of Christianity, the vast majority of Christians preach, teach, and believe Jesuit heresy. We can hit that with another show. But great job today, man. Next time you come out, continue to send out another link, and I'll be happy to jump in with you.
Oh, will do. I had lots of fun today, Johnny, and I'll keep sending out links to you, George, and the crew when I'm streaming. I love your guys' input.
Good stuff, man.
All right, and thanks everyone in the chat for coming in today. Appreciate. We got 85 people watching, which is great to see. So
good numbers, outstanding.
Right, take care, Johnny. God bless, and God bless everyone in the chat.
God bless, bro.
Stay from the corona hoax. See you guys.
You're going to try. Go all the way. Otherwise, don't even start. If you're going to try, go all the way. This could mean losing girlfriends, wives, relatives, jobs, and maybe your mind.